And this is arguing that the ends justify the means, right? But surveillance isn't about privacy. And privacy isn't about something to hide. Privacy is about something to protect. It's about protecting you. It's about protecting your ideas. It's about protecting your family. It's about protecting your community. It's about protecting yourself. Privacy is the foundation of all other rights. Freedom of speech doesn't mean much if you don't have the space to be free from the prejudice of other people's thoughts and think about what it is that you really believe, what it is that you actually want to say. Freedom of religion is not so valuable if you can't decide without the pressures of an external body or a state-sponsored religion or anything like that, what it is that you want to worship. Freedom of the press is not particularly valuable if journalists can't actually keep their investigations secret and find out what the actual truth of our world really is, and then share it with us. I guess this is a long-winded way of saying, arguing that you don't care about privacy because you've got nothing to hide is no different than saying you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say.
By the way, Ed, I know you can't see this, but there are thousands of people out here who are applauding right now.
I might not be able to see them, but I sure can hear them.
So, of these thousands of people who saw the signs warning that Roskilde was surveilling them, there were a few people who got especially irate. They got super angry. And so they came to complain. And we took we had a complaint booth here, and it was full of people who were super angry. Well, we took the 3 angriest people, and we said that they could ask you their question directly as a reward for having been made so angry. So we're going to begin with Sophia, who is here with the first question for you from the audience. Here is Sophia.
Come on up.
First of all, I'm very honored to be able to ask you a question. I can hear myself so much. Okay, I've been working with cybersecurity for the past 5 years, and I must say that you've created a whole different awareness around cybersecurity and privacy, data privacy, which created much more distrust between nation states. The EU just passed a new data protection directive this spring, which sets a completely different focus on protecting individuals. In this directive, companies are encouraged to openly report how many data breaches they have, and at the same time, companies can be fined up to 2% of their revenue. Some say that this creates an incentive structure for the companies not to report the whole story. What are your thoughts on this? And do you think more regulations will create more trust and less division between nation states?
I think it's a good question. One of the central challenges that we're facing is how do we decide what should be shared, what can be shared, and what we as the public generally reasonably can expect to be kept private on our behalf, right? If we're trusting some random company on the internet with the most intimate details of our life, right? Facebook knows who all of your friends are. Now, if you've got the Facebook app on your phone, right, they're tracking your geodata, right, where your phone is as it goes into a store. And then they're selling that to advertisers. Increasingly, they're starting to recommend other friends, that people you might know that you haven't already signed up as being Facebook buddies on, based on if your phone is spending a lot of time around their phone, right? But it's not just Facebook. This isn't just to call out Facebook. There are a lot of services that are doing this. The question is, what obligation of decency do the companies that profit off of us hold toward us? Not just the customer, right, but the citizen, an equal partner in society. who do these companies really work for? And it's not just about companies, it's again about governments, because intelligence agencies are spying on us even more intrusively. And they're sharing this information in many cases with far fewer restrictions. Last year, we had what was called the US-EU Safe Harbor Agreement, which allowed these companies to sort of, European companies and US companies, to move our data, details about our lives, records about all of our activities, back and forth like sort of baseball cards, right? Do you have this one? No. Do you want this one? Sure, please give me this person's life. And they do it. That's their business model. Until after 2013, these issues finally got to the courts. And the European Court of Justice, I believe it was, correct me if I'm wrong, finally struck this law down as being a violation of human rights. And again, what human rights, right? The right to live without being interfered with, the right to privacy, the right to be left alone unless you're doing something wrong. However, the European Union was supposed to negotiate a new agreement with the United States to replace this agreement that protects our rights in a more significant, more lasting way. They haven't actually done that. They put a new agreement in place called the Privacy Shield. But if you actually look at what the agreement does, it's not a privacy shield at all. It's actually a liability shield for companies and governments. It didn't require the United States to change any of the laws that were authorizing this kind of indiscriminate mass surveillance of so many Europeans and other people around the world. Those laws are still in effect. Anybody sitting in this crowd who's not holding a U.S. passport or a U.S. green card right now, if the U.S. wants to get your entire Google search history, everything you've ever sent in a Gmail account, anything you've ever done on Facebook, anything that you've ever done with any of the biggest names, biggest companies on the internet, Skype, Hotmail, Yahoo, Google, again, even Apple, they can do this without a warrant. The government can do this without even going to a court. This was my job when I was at the NSA. And this is the kind of thing that made me come forward, because not only were they doing it without an individual warrant, right? You don't actually have to be doing something wrong for this to occur. An analyst just has to have a hunch that you meet the criteria of what's called a thematic warrant, a general warrant, signed by the Attorney General that says if we think you're involved in a certain class of behavior, we don't have to go to a judge individually, unless you're an American. We just have to go to our own internal processes and then go to Google, go to Facebook, knock on their door, give them a letter and say, you've got to cough up all of this information. So again, these are complex topics, so it's difficult to answer in a really short form. But the question that we have to answer here is, how do we fix this? What kind of world do we want to live in? Do we want to live in a world where the devices that we paid for, that sit in our pockets right now in the crowd, maybe that you're taking a picture with, that you use to check your bank account, your credit card that you use maybe to buy a beer at the bar or anything like that, isn't working for you. It's working for somebody else. You paid for it, but it's not yours. This is the problem of what the government calls metadata, which right now today doesn't enjoy sort of any legal protection. This is the kind of thing that you see on those conference signs. When you hear the word metadata in government, right, nobody knows what the hell metadata is. That's really technical. Metadata means tracking records. Metadata means your private activities, indications of what you've been doing, not exactly what you did, right? Not what you said to your buddy, but the fact that you talked to your buddy. The fact that you called your mom, the fact that you called a suicide hotline, where your phone went, who it was connected to, what political groups you're associated with, every website that you've ever connected, all of these things are metadata. And they don't have the kind of legal protections that we need today. And again, this gets us back to the point where it's not just about privacy, right? Privacy is a central issue here. But this is actually about power. This is actually about control. This is about, in a democracy, right? We have this language of public officials and private citizens. But why is it that increasingly, year after year, it seems like we know less and less about what's going on in government because state secrets and intelligence agencies and classification At the same time, because of these new laws, these new methods of surveillance, they know more about us. They know more about the private citizens than they ever have before in any society in the history of humanity. Is that right? And at the very least, shouldn't we get a vote?
Could I have Jesper up here?